Okay, in this video, I want to go over not only your assignments, but the final project. And I want you to have access to this final project video from the very beginning of the semester because you're more than welcome to work ahead. It's not going to hurt you any in this particular course. It doesn't mean that you'll do it exactly right, but it does mean that you could theoretically understand from the very beginning what your final process here is. As I said in the previous video, your first two assignments are a close reading and then an annotated bibliography. If these are unfamiliar terms to you, that's completely natural, and we will spend a good part of this time, especially the first week, thinking about what close reading is. Also, if you look at the syllabus again, you'll notice that this week we're using a close reading as well as an enumerative bibliography, which probably you haven't heard of, but it's a relatively simple assignment. In theory, the process of it might be a little bit different. But I want to talk about the final project because, again, everything is cumulative in this course. The final project of this particular course will revolve around Citizen by Claudia Rankine. However, we will be spending the first half of the semester looking at Ada Limon's Bright Dead Things. So in some ways, we're using this as a way to help us understand how to approach through the assignments, the second book. But the hope is that you're going to enjoy, really that's the hope, that you enjoy both texts for their own merits. The final project, again, will be on Citizen. The first paper, pardon me, the close reading will be on Ada Limon's text. So you'll be doing, in essence, two close readings, though the second one will be quite a bit shorter than the first one. And I'll explain all of that in much more detail as these videos progress. But for the final project, basically what it includes is first of all, you will be writing a close reading on a poem or selection from Citizen. The second part of this will be an enumerative bibliography, which I'll discuss shortly. The third part is going to be an annotated bibliography. And then the fourth part is going to be a topic proposal. These are the four major parts of the final project. And then they're all built around the Citizen text. Now, what these all four things do is that they all would help you, in theory, write a research paper, a traditional research paper for a college course that typically would run anywhere from 8 to 10 pages. That's a pretty standard thing. Now, given the nature of this particular course, I'm not going to ask for a full research paper for a number of different reasons, but mainly we could just get it down to a time frame. There's no way that I could read all of your 8 to 10 page research papers in the time frame that I have to get them in and then grade them. But what I can do is teach you how to prepare yourself to write a successful, intelligent research paper by following all of the different angles, right? And these are the angles that it would take. A close reading, which asks you to look closely at a poem or a part of a poem, actually from a larger text, where you pay attention to a number of different things, typically what we call the poetics, all right? The poetics would mean the use of certain elements, such as anything from rhyme to imagery, word choice, metaphor, structure, form, all of these things that we will be discussing as the semester goes forward. And the idea is that that is one of those elements of this particular assignment. It's also the first assignment that you do, so you'll have developed some of these skills as we go forward. The enumerative bibliography is really just a works cited sheet. If you're unfamiliar with the works cited sheet, that is a list of the sources that you have used to help you write about a particular topic. And enumerative bibliography is organized alphabetically by the first name that appears on a citation, typically the author's name, but not always. And please understand that there will be much more information about each one of these, but I'm just giving you an overview. Your enumerative bibliography will consist of a number of different sources focused on different elements of research, all right? So this is a research-based course, so you'll be conducting research. You'll receive a lot of information about how to do that, what is valid research, what does it look like, but it lists them all. This allows me to see how you're thinking about research, what kinds of elements you're working toward, and I can give you some advice as you move forward saying like, maybe think about this, maybe think about that. So the idea is that I could get a sense of how you're approaching the particular text. So close reading shows me how do you actually look at the book itself. The enumerative bibliography says this is kind of the general sense of how you're going to research for an idea toward an argument. The next one is an annotated bibliography. This will be less sources than the enumerative, but very often the enumerative bibliography builds into the annotated. So you'll be taking probably about half of what's on the enumerative to then annotate them. An annotated bibliography is, again, kind of like a works cited sheet where you provide a citation for a source that you have used, and then you provide me with about 150 word paragraph, typically 2 paragraphs, that explain why you're using this source, sort of some of the quotes you're going to be using, and why it would be really helpful for you to have this source course in a larger research project. And that's an annotated bibliography. Often with an annotated bib, the hope is that when you go to sit down to write your paper, a lot of these paragraphs you'll be able just to take almost copy and paste directly into a research paper, and you'd have to mess with transitions and topic sentences and make sure that it makes sense in terms of formatting and organization. But generally the idea is that you do a lot of this work ahead of time so that when I see it, I can say, hey, I don't think this source actually is going to be very helpful, or this quote doesn't really help me, or, on the other side, this is an excellent source and it's really well done. All right. So the annotated bib kind of gets you started, jumpstarts you into this particular process. Finally, a topic proposal. A topic proposal is just what it sounds like. You're proposing an idea to the professor, or really to the reader, saying, hey, this is kind of what I'm trying to think about. This is my pitch. These are some of the sources I'm going to use. Here's some of the questions I want to answer. Here's some of the work I'm going to look at specific with the text. And generally, here's my understanding of where my argument will come from. So again, with a topic proposal, like everything else, it's about developing us into a very central idea that I can help you create a really good paper. Now, you're not going to be necessarily writing this paper, the research paper. In fact, you're not going to be writing it for me at all, but you will write more research papers as your college career continues. And if you can learn these elements, if you can learn how to read closely, regardless of the course, right? Seriously, regardless of its English or history, or even really in the sciences, if you can read a text closely, if you can conduct quality research, if you can utilize that research intelligently, and if you can make an argument and a pitch for that, you can, in essence, sit down and write a paper without the fear of staring at a blank page, wondering, what do I say next? Because you've done all of the work as you go forward. So this final project that's due on the last day of class, it's not just like all of a sudden, at the end of June, you have a massive thing due. What it is actually is that you have to go back and revise a number of different things that you've been turning in throughout the course of the semester to make sure that you can then turn in a final project that incorporates my comments, that makes sense of what you're trying to do. And that in theory, if you needed to later, you could go back and write a really successful research paper. So the main thing to keep in mind here is that you are not actually writing a research paper. What you are doing is working on all the component parts that would theoretically develop into a strong research paper. So that's the idea behind your final project. So all of this will be done inside of the same reading journal. You'll be keeping up with this as you go forward. Let me highly recommend that you create a table of contents so that your professor, namely me, can find it very simply. A lot of what we're doing this semester specifically is teaching you how to be focused, how to be clear, how to make sure that the person reading your work knows exactly what you're trying to do. That kind of level of attention is always beneficial when you're trying to become a better writer, a clearer communicator, a stronger student, and then eventually, right, a better person in terms of your overall understanding of critical attention and observation. So the main thing is, even though some of these phrases, words, and assignments don't make a lot of sense right now, they will eventually. So that is the presence behind your final project. The next video will be going over both American Identity, Whitman, and very possibly some close reading aspects. So you're going to start seeing how the close reading happens first. So the way the assignments work is close reading, enumerative bib, annotated bib, topic proposal. These 4 things become your final project, right? Which is all becoming the last final thing. So that's generally the idea for how this course works forward on all of that one. I am happy to follow up on any of this information, and all of these informations will be having, follow-up videos to make sure that you know what I'm trying to ask for. But that's the first step to understand, is that this is the project that you will be working toward from day 1 to, the final day of the course. So with any questions that you have about this one, maybe hold off on them, because as the semester goes forward, you'll be receiving more information and more videos that are tailored specifically toward each assignment. Thank you, right? If you went this far. I've also noticed that most students don't last this long inside of a video, so I'm expecting that nobody sees this right now. And if you did see this right now, then well done.